Good to go. Okay. All right. Well, I would invite everyone into the room, and we will go ahead and get the May 17th, 2021 Salina City Commission meeting underway. I'd like to confirm with staff that the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been provided.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, we'll proceed to roll call.
Mayor Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
If you're able, please stand to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, before we get to awards and proclamations, I did want to see if there was a consensus among the governing body, in light of the crowd that we have here today, to move item 7.5, the repealing the ordinance with the mask mandate, to move 7.5 up in the agenda to precede 7.1. Or would you prefer to leave it at the end of the agenda?
Be fine with me. Do we need to
fine
make a
with that,
motion
Mayor.
to that extent?
Yes, please.
Mayor Hodges, I make a motion that we move item 7.5, being ordinance number 21-11058, to the beginning of administration in front of 7.1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance item 7.5 to proceed item 7.1 in today's agenda. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, with that, we'll get to awards and proclamations.
Item 3.1, the week of May 16th through May 22nd, 2021 is National Public Works Week in the city of Salina. Heidi Black, Public Works Department, will read the proclamation.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, I have with me Streets employee William Steck, and I would like to invite him to read the proclamation in my place.
Awesome, thank you.
Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as streets and highways, stormwater and levee systems, solid waste collection and disposal operations, municipal fleet maintenance services, water treatment and distribution, wastewater collection and treatment, engineering and inspection, public facilities, and whereas the health and safety and comfort of this community greatly depends on these services and facilities each and every day, as well as in times of emergency and community disaster. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these services and facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vital, dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works officials. And whereas the efficient of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments and maternally influenced by the people's attitude and understanding the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, I, Melissa Rose Hodges, Mayor of City of Salina, do hereby proclaim the week of May 16th through May 22nd, 2021 as National Public Works Week in the City of Salina, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hands and caused the seal of the city of Salina, Kansas, to be affixed this 17th day of May 2021.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name.
Stack.
Steck. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Steck. I really appreciate it. Is there going to be any way that we're going to be celebrating or recognizing Public Works Week?
Yes, actually, on Wednesday, General Services is planning on hosting an appreciation lunch for all the Public Works employees.
Well, fantastic. Well, please know that we appreciate all of your contributions so much because we always take it for granted that things are going to work, and sometimes they don't, and you get called out in all kinds of miserable situations. And please know that whenever I see a crew working, I'm incredibly grateful for you guys being there to take care of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
If you'd like to come forward and receive your proclamation. Thank you very much. And enjoy your luncheon. Thanks. Item 3.2.
Item 3.2, the week of May 16th through May 22nd, 2021, as Emergency Medical Services Week in the city of Salina. Kevin Royce, Fire Chief, will read the proclamation.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, good afternoon. EMS Week proclamation to designate the week of May 16th to 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services is a vital public service, whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. Whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventive medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas emergency medical services systems consist of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, police officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other out-of-hospital medical care providers. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designated Emergency Medical Services Week. Therefore, I, Melissa Rose Hodges, Mayor of the City of Salina, Kansas, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 16th to the 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week. With the EMS strong theme, this is EMS, caring for our communities. I encourage the community to observe this week.
Thank you very much, Chief Royce. Are we going to be doing anything special to celebrate or recognize our EMS workers?
Not this year, just whatever we can. We had quite a trying year, as you can imagine. And
Absolutely.
we're coming out of it, and we were very fortunate, and it's nice to recognize all of our people.
It is, and it's so nice to be able to count on those pre-hospital services. And thank you so much for making the presentation today, and please convey our thanks to all of the EMS workers.
Certainly will. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to Citizens Forum. Citizens Forum is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on an item that doesn't appear on today's agenda. If you would like to speak, please come forward, state your name and where you're from, and you will have 3 minutes to ask any questions, bring anything of interest to the commission. And that does go for people who are online as well. They can raise their virtual hands. Is there anyone who would like to speak? And I don't see any hands raised online either. Nope. All right, well then we will go ahead and proceed to the consent agenda.
6.1, approve the minutes of May 10, 2021. Item 6.2, approve the purchase of 20 Stalker radars, ancillary equipment, shipping, warranties, and equipment installation.
Are there any items that a commissioner would like to remove from the consent agenda?
Nope.
All right, hearing none, I would accept a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 6.1 and 6.2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 6.1 and 6.2. I just have one thing for clarification, and I'm sorry to put Mr. Bankston on the spot, but as we discussed prior to the meeting, because we have the audio, is it permissible to go ahead and do the vote by voice, or should we raise hands or continue to do a roll call in something like this?
I think either the raising of hands or the call for a voice vote is acceptable under the circumstances where anyone participating remotely is doing so via Zoom and not simply calling in. I understand the Attorney General's direction to be that the roll call is to be sure that anyone who doesn't have the video element can hear exactly who is voting and how.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that
And
clarification.
Mayor, there is one person that's called in, so.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and just do the roll call then. Sorry,
Tried.
I'm trying to get us past that, but I guess not quite yet.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye, that motion passes 4-0, which will take us to, we will proceed to item 7.5.
Item 7.5, approve ordinance number 21-11058, repealing ordinance number 20-11045, requiring the wearing of masks or other face coverings in public spaces.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank city staff for helping us to respond so quickly to the new CDC guidelines, because this was a very last-minute agenda addition, as many of you are aware, and obviously we need to address it before our May 24th meeting. With that, I'll turn it over to City Manager Mike Scragg.
Actually, I'm going to hand this off to the Deputy City Manager, Mr. Wood, and prepare
All
the
right.
staff report.
Yeah, sure. I don't actually have a whole lot to report. The ordinance that's attached just repeals the requirement to wear face masks or other coverings in public spaces. It just basically repeals that. This is in response to the CDC guidance that was put out last week that basically says that fully vaccinated people can resume activities without wearing masks or physically distancing in some circumstances, and also in response to the governor's indication that the state would follow those same guidelines. So really the options that you have are just to approve the ordinance with amendments, or postpone it. I'm sure you don't want to do that one, so I'll leave that off the table. This will take 2 readings, so if you want to do this and complete it today, you'll have to approve the ordinance and then make a motion that would declare that there's a compelling public interest, that we do the first and second reading on the same date, and then do the second reading. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions if there's anything.
2 questions. One, if this is repealed today, it does not become effective until it's published in the paper? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we discussed that in terms of the timing of that. From an enforcement standpoint, it would be up to the police department. So we can certainly advise the police department to cease enforcement between your action and publication.
All right. And did the CDC or the governor offer any suggestions as to how to settle if a private business still has a mask enforcement and a person claims they are vaccinated? Is there any proof required?
So the private businesses would still be able to dictate how they want to. They could still require masks if they want to. This is just for public spaces. So the private businesses could still do, the same thing they're doing today if they chose to do that. There's all kinds of guidance on the CDC's website that I didn't, get into great detail in the staff report on. But certainly private businesses can continue to do whatever they feel is best for interest of their employees or patrons.
Given I'm sorry, did I
I'm sorry,
interrupt you,
no.
Commissioner Ryan?
No question.
Just to follow up on Commissioner Davis's comment, to verify, we would be repealing the face mask ordinance, which would affect those who are vaccinated and those who are not vaccinated, correct?
That's correct.
Correct. We would no longer have an ordinance in effect
In effect,
requiring the
period.
wearing of face masks.
And, okay, given what I think is going to be the consensus here, I do have a proposal to make. I know a lot of you are here because you feel very strongly about the mask ordinance, and I think the way that we're moving today is that we're going to be removing the mask ordinance, but what I would propose is that we actually go ahead and make a motion and have that on the floor, because I think that that might serve to reassure some of those who are here and are planning to comment. Are there any objections to that, or would you prefer that we just proceed with the public forum as normal?
I'll be glad to make a motion if that's what we need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mayor Hodges, I move we approve ordinance number 21-11058, repealing the ordinance requiring the wearing of face masks.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to repeal ordinance number 20-11045, requiring the wearing of face masks or other face coverings in public spaces. With that being said, before I do open it up, if there are any members of the public that would still like to comment, you're welcome to do so. Just a brief statement that I have. I have voted in the past to keep the City of Salina's mask ordinance in effect until the following criteria were met. We had made as much progress as we could toward the goal of the 70% vaccination rate of adults in the community, or had demonstrated that we had met the demand as it exists, that cases, hospitalizations, and mortality rates demonstrated a long-term reduction, to support the request by area educational institutions so that in-school learning had an optimum chance at success through the end of the academic year, and to align with current CDC guidelines. Well, last week when the CDC updated its recommendations and announced that it is safe for fully vaccinated people to resume normal contact and activities, the time is appropriate, I believe, to repeal the mask ordinance and to declare that a compelling public interest exists to allow first and second reading on the same day. The repeal of the mask ordinance, like all ordinances, like Mr. Wood noted previously, would be effective upon publication in the Salina Journal, but we do have the latitude to instruct the Salina Police Department to suspend its enforcement. But as we go forward together in these unprecedented times, let's please keep a few things in mind. The repeal of this ordinance does not change the fact that the CDC recommends unvaccinated people continue to wear masks indoors and to maintain social distancing. For the sake of the vulnerable members of our community, like those who are immunosuppressed or too young to receive the vaccination, if you haven't been vaccinated, please continue to wear your face masks indoors. That individual businesses and organizations have the ability to require masks in their place of business, and that citizens should respect those policies that have been established. I'd like to offer heartfelt thanks to Salinans who understood the importance of doing their part to limit COVID's effect on our community, who willingly complied with our mask ordinance, and who were vaccinated at their earliest opportunity. As we proceed with public comment, I'd like to reinforce that our action today is to repeal the face mask ordinance. Obviously, there's consensus among the commission that this is the appropriate action to take. While you're welcome to comment on our potential action to repeal the face mask ordinance, given the crowd assembled here today that I think wants to speak to that issue, I'd encourage you to keep your comments brief and not repeat what's previously been said. Thank you. Do we have anyone who would like to speak about the repeal of the mask ordinance at this time?
Mayor, Commissioners, Chad Farber here from Salina. It's been a long time coming, but I'm glad this board has come to this consensus. This has been a topic of controversy in our community, and I, for one, am glad to see this going away so that we can all come together again as Salinans and work towards the common goal of making Salina a better place. And so as I understand the consensus to be, I understand we haven't had the vote yet, I am looking forward to this repeal of this ordinance. And I would say, again, let's all get back on the same team and continue moving forward. I know there will be some difficulties with individual businesses, and I appreciate that latitude where businesses can make their own decisions. And I would say it's not our place as citizens to be arguing back and forth with the proprietors of those businesses, but that we can cordially get along and still make our point across. But thank you for all of the times that you've listened to me and to the fellow citizens behind me as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farber. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak today? Is there anyone who's got their virtual hand raised? All right. I'll bring it back to the commission for a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
So then one comment.
Yes, sir.
I don't think any time in this, at least I have not considered us all on Team Salina. You know, our job is to make sure the government runs. When businesses shut down, employees are sick, and we've done our best to make decisions that keep the city going, and considering where we sit socially and economically and educationally right now, I would dare say we've done a pretty good job of coming through this. There are still a lot of emails and calls that I get from people who are afraid of what's going to happen because we are now all on the honor system, or will be on the honor system. So, you will now get a chance to see how many of your fellow citizens do make responsible choices. But you won't know what their choice is unless they make you sick, or what their choice was. So it's even more important now that if there's fear about getting the disease, and the disease is still active, get vaccinated. I do have just a few suggestions. And last comments, for those of us who've been, or were stuck at home with our spouses, mates, pets, kids, whatever, I hope the 15 months was enjoyable. I actually got to spend more time with my wife than I probably would have, and it was great. The one thing that I liked about the mask is that it reinforced good behavior. And when people are in car accidents and they hurt their neck, we put a soft little collar on their neck. That collar wouldn't keep you from moving your neck if your life depended on it. But what does it tell you to do? Well, don't look way up on the ceiling. Don't bend under the sofa. Don't turn your head to back the car up. It's a reminder. And for many, the mask is a reminder, wash your hands, cover your cough. Don't pick your nose unless you have a washcloth to clean it with. Don't stand over other people's food and talk to them when they're eating. Wipe your doorknobs. And most importantly, I hope we've learned, despite the Kansas work ethic, if you're sick, stay home. And it's not just for coronavirus, but it's the flu we get every year. So I'm hoping as a society we have learned some healthier habits from this. Despite my public stance, I love to walk around without this. I'm vaccinated. If I see somebody who's coughing and looks sick, from my training, I'm probably not going near them anyway, coronavirus or no coronavirus. But just make smart citizens and remember your mask, if you're sick, is to protect those around you. It's not to protect necessarily you. And this is where we really find out how much we care about our fellow citizens as opposed to just ourselves. So I thank the city for putting up with this as long as we have. But I think when you look at the social and economic success that we're, knock on wood, still enjoying here, it's been worth it. And I think there's a reason other cities look to Salina for direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from commissioners?
Just a quick comment, I think it's been made a couple times, is I just ask that as citizens, we respect each other, whether you're pro or anti-mask. We as individuals don't know of the comfort level others have or the health issues that someone may have. So please respect the businesses that require you to continue to wear them. some of those are coming from corporate headquarters in different states, and the individuals working there are just paid to work there, and they shouldn't be harassed by those that have different feelings. So let's treat each other with respect. I think Salina is a caring community, and I think we can do that and get past this. And hopefully in a few more months, it won't even be required that anybody wear a mask in any facility. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Ryan, anything?
Nothing for me.
All right. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. That motion,
Nate, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that motion passes 4-0, and
Mayor Hodges, I move that we declare that there's a compelling public interest exists to allow first and second reading of the ordinance on the same day.
Second.
we have a motion to declare a compelling public interest exists to do the second reading on the same day. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. That motion passes 4-0.
Okay, since I'm on a roll. Mayor Hodges, I move we approve ordinance number 21-11058 on second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 21-11058 on second reading. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. And that motion passes 4-0. Thank you all very much for being here today. I appreciate it. And hopefully.
Feel free to stick. We're not throwing you out.
Yeah. No. Yes, you're welcome to stay for the whole thing. But if you were here for that, thank you for coming. With that, we will move on to item 7.1.
Item 7.1, Campbell Plaza redevelopment, acquisition request discussion.
All right, Mr. Scragg.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I want to start by acknowledging that you have some supplemental information at your dais, and I'll walk you through that here in a bit. I'm going to start out. Tim Blake's here on behalf of Wheat State Properties, and Wheat State Hospitality, I'm sorry, and we'll be prepared to answer questions in greater detail. But you may recall that not too long ago you had a proposal before you from Restore Properties, who was asking or requesting consideration of transferring ownership of Campbell Plaza, and it all related to development of building adjoining the plaza to the north for the potential sale and then operation as a restaurant by Mr. Blake and his group. So things have changed a little. You sent us away with some feedback in terms of what your concerns were and interest in a license agreement approach, more so than a property transfer approach. And we've been meeting on a weekly basis since then to flesh out the operational challenges that Wheat State would experience with Campbell Plaza in its current configuration, and a possible model to balance those interests, redevelopment of Campbell Plaza, and kind of the city's interests. So what we have before you today is our efforts to kind of take all that into account. And there's quite a bit of information in the report, so I'll try to be brief. We looked at Campbell Plaza. As you know, the existing stage intrudes in the space considerably. While the plaza is oriented east to west, the stage is oriented north to south, and it dominates the plaza. So the conclusion was, kind of coming out of your prior conversation, and then as staff and Mr. Blake looked at it, that the current stage was not conducive to the use. So the proposed approach, or the model that we've built, is to relocate that overhead structure out of Campbell Plaza, to remove the footprint or the actual concrete stage that's there now, and then install a new, smaller, reoriented stage on the east end of the plaza. And we'll get to some renderings of that in a minute, with that being oriented to the west. Then to accommodate the desire to use Campbell Plaza in conjunction with Mr. Blake's restaurant, we talked about license agreement provisions, taking into account the feedback that you've given previously about wanting to maintain a 24/7 pedestrian way, which Mr. Blake was very receptive to, and we were able to accommodate that. So the proposed approach has an 8-foot pedestrian way set aside on the south side of the plaza, the remainder of the license area fenced with decorative fencing to be installed by Wheat State, installed and maintained by Wheat State. And then that space is able for, or made available for non-exclusive use by Wheat State, meaning they're able to use it for outdoor dining for their patrons, but they are willing to acknowledge that members of the public could also enter the plaza and use the tables and chairs they have out, the gaming area that they're proposing. They could intermingle with customers. And so the license agreement takes that into account as well. So the three elements of the approach were the removing and relocating the overhead structure, removing the concrete stage, installation of a smaller overhead structure and stage in Campbell Plaza, and then, as I said, the 24/7 pedestrian access, the non-exclusive use, and then scheduling was another topic of conversation. Brad Anderson, on behalf of the city, the Arts and Humanities Director, and Mr. Blake and Salina Downtown Inc. discussed an approach that's described in the staff report, whereby SDI has kind of the farthest advanced opportunity to schedule activities in the plaza and on the stage, 365 to 181 days out. Then Wheat State has the opportunity from 180 days to 91 days to schedule, so they're doing that kind of taking into account SDI's plans, and then general reservations from the public would come after that 90 days or within that 90-day time frame. So it kind of creates a hierarchy where SDI can still do their programming. They just need to do that in advance. It allows Wheat State to then supplement the SDI programming, and then it still allows for public reservations if there's interest. So then the question becomes, what becomes of the stage, of the overhead structure in Campbell Plaza? And we looked at a handful of options. The first thing we did early in the conversation was looked at the size of the stage in comparison to all of our existing plazas. We tried to figure out whether we could orient it differently in Campbell Plaza. We looked at Strand Plaza and other plazas in the downtown and couldn't find a location that was conducive. We had some conversation with you as the governing body previously about what we commonly refer to as the Ad Astra parking lot. It's a city-owned parking lot north of Ad Astra. And then we also looked at the possibility of trying to locate it in a way that anticipates the river renewal and possible plaza on 4th Street. In the end, we ended up back at the Ad Astra Plaza. All the other options, with the exception of the river project, just were not conducive in terms of size. The river project, while it is making forward progress, just isn't far enough along to really have some certainty to know where to relocate the stage and put the footings in place and do the site preparation that would be necessary. And given the timing of all this, that it didn't make sense to mothball the overhead structure and incur that cost twice in terms of mobilizing it. I think the added advantage of putting it in the Ad Astra Plaza, and there is an aerial rendering in the information that you've been provided of how it would lay into the corner of that parking lot. And so that is the southwest corner of Ash and Santa Fe. That is staff's best effort to, dimensionally recreate it in that corner. And with that orientation, not only is it directed at the Ad Astra parking lot owned by the city of Salina, but it also picks up the city-county building parking lot that's west of there and is currently used for city staff parking during normal business hours. So the footprint of those two combined parking lots is just a little bit over an acre in size compared to the Campbell Plaza being about an eighth of an acre. So it creates another venue space in the downtown, a considerably larger space as well, with minimal impact on number of parking spaces and traffic configuration through the parking lot. So I think it represents an opportunity that's taken into consideration. So that then we then had to look at the budget, and those obviously there's more scope than what we'd intended for Campbell Plaza. So we went back and looked, and we do have funds left from the downtown project. I referred to it in here as the Starbond project, but our funds for the streetscape. So there are a few items that staff had identified as remaining punch list items that we took into account, and you should see that as an attachment as well. But kind of walking you through that, the Campbell Plaza portion of the project we've yet to complete work. We put it on hold as the building is being repaired by Restore, and we couldn't get in, have both projects going on, Campbell Plaza and the building work at the same time. So there's $159,632 of budgeted expenditures that have yet to be spent because the project was put on hold. There are $384,415 of funds remaining. And so the added cost, the total cost that we've estimated for Campbell Plaza would be $242,004, which is an increase of $82,372. The estimated cost for the Ad Astra relocation and completion is another $80,363.75. So you combine all that together, and we're spending $162,735 more than we had initially anticipated. We have a reconfigured Campbell Plaza stage that's right-sized to that space, and then we have the relocation of the stage to the Ad Astra parking lot, and that's a venue that wasn't in the original plans. So one of the things that was omitted from the packet, totally my fault. If you only knew how much time and effort we put into this, I have no idea how I overlooked it, getting it in the packet. But is the document kind of at the tail end or the second tab of the information that was at your desk? That is the public financing application, and in it, it has a number of renderings of Campbell Plaza from different vantage points. The very first page there is Santa Fe looking east, and you can see the stage kind of set in the background. And then the other one I would call your attention to is more of a architectural rendering and an aerial photograph, or from an aerial view. That's it. So this is a rendering of the first and second floors of the restaurant. So they're in the middle. You can see kind of a, yes, the point, Jacob's got the pointer on the stage in the backside of the plaza. So you can see that 8-foot wide pedestrian way on the left or on the south. Then the next section is the remainder of Campbell Plaza, and it's showing game area and seating, and then the stage there on the west end. And then the next section is an interior view of the restaurant building itself. And so to give you a sense of kind of the footprint of the stage and its orientation in the plaza, that's the proposed configuration. I would also note that the license agreement makes provision for an outdoor set of stairs from the proposed restaurant that allows them access to rooftop dining on the roof of the first floor portion of the building on the east end. The stairs themselves are in Campbell Plaza, and they are part of the license agreement. The license agreement does provide, it still reserves the city's authority to rescind the license agreement, and it does that by making provision that in the event that happens, they could either alter their internal operations. It's a capacity issue for the second floor. They could reduce that occupancy capacity on the second floor, or they could install an alternate set of stairs that's code compliant, which most likely would be within the interior of the building. It would eat up floor space on the first and second floor, but it's not impossible. And so that's a lot of information pretty quickly as it relates to kind of going back and revisiting the Campbell Plaza request and alternate approach by way of license agreement that you asked us to take a look at. I can stop there. I would say that a companion item with that is a public funding request for CID funds. If you'd like me to kind of finish out the whole conversation, I can do that. Okay. So, like I said, this is a companion item. This is all predicated on the Restore completing the project, and then Wheat State acquiring the building, and the license agreement makes reference to that as well. And then it is a downtown investment eligible for public financing by way of our Star Bond financing, and the request is for CID financing for a new retail business. They've requested, $352,500 of CID proceeds, and their total project, not counting kind of operating capital to get started, but just their initial investment, is $1,175,000. So it's about a 30% CID funding compared to the overall project investment. So we've, in addition to the Campbell Plaza conversation, gone through the transferee agreement and that application process. I would note that the transferee agreement, we have modified it from the original template. We've learned, well, for two things. That template was really kind of drafted targeting the key projects, Homewood Suites, the alley, the garage, Stiefel, some of the old Chicago, some of those things that were time sensitive, and a couple of them just had a different approach in terms of funding. We've now kind of learned that, the rest of these projects that we're doing transferee agreements for don't receive any funding out of any of the STAR bond proceeds, CID proceeds, until the project's completed and receives a certificate of occupancy. So they're totally at risk on the front end until they achieve that completion. So a lot of that language that was geared at performance milestones and commencement dates and things like that, we've identified as we don't necessarily need to be that dialed in as long as we kind of take that pay-as-you-go approach. Number one, payment doesn't start until the project's completed, and it's now payment in full. It's on an annual basis if funds are available, and you may recall from the information previously provided that they kind of go into a priority order of the applicants in the order that they're approved. So in the event that there's not full funding, there's provision made for holding back payment for those that are lower in priority. So with all those things in place, the risk is considerably on the applicant more so than the city or any of our project funds. With that, I'll pause and offer to take any questions. I think Mr. Blake would like an opportunity to walk you through his project, and I'm positive he's ready to answer questions, probably more so than me.
Before we go any further, I do want to comment that I recused myself before on this, but and I have checked with city staff and also with legal counsel. This is a new license agreement and transferee agreement with a separate entity that I currently do not have a conflict of interest with. So just in case any of the fellow commissioners had any questions, I wanted to.
Mayor, and I would note the same instance for me before because of the change of the applicant. I'm no longer at conflict either.
So.
And then I apologize, there is one other piece of information, one other additional document that was at your dais that I probably should walk you through. There were some changes made to the license agreement. We had mixed references between an 8-foot dimension and a 10-foot dimension for the pedestrian, the dedicated pedestrian way, and 8-foot is the correct dimension. The other thing that we tried to address in greater detail was authority over the space, with it being a non-exclusive use. Wanted to be sure that we were protecting Weed State's ability as related controlling alcohol access under their license. People just bringing alcohol in from the outside, making sure they had the authority there. They also asked for confirmation on our part that when they closed the plaza in the evenings, that they had sufficient authority to not allow anyone to be in there, homeless persons or otherwise. And so there are a handful of changes that are shown as red lines in the document that's at your seat. In the recital, section C, there's clarification about the pedestrian way and its uses as a designated outdoor dining, recreation, and entertainment area, and that it be open at a minimum of 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. each day. The Weed State is accepting responsibility for controlling that in terms of opening it and closing it. On the next page is corrections to the dimensions that I mentioned. In section 3, in terms of perimeter fencing and gating, it's more clear that Weed State shall be responsible for assuring that no persons utilize or remain within the licensed plaza after 10 p.m. and securing the licensed plaza. In the open to the public outdoor dining section, we added more detail in terms of kind of the provisions as it relates to our ordinances about sidewalk dining and application of liquor license format. And then there's another section B about consumption of alcoholic liquor, that the city reserves the ability to govern the basis upon which alcohol may be consumed. And that's basically on the premise that they'll be operating under their license, but there's also an opportunity by state law to have a common consumption area if there were a festival in the downtown and we went through ABC and got licensing and designated an area where people could walk from location to location with alcohol, then just kind of reserving the ability to make that part of a broader plan. And then the last thing I would tell you is we did identify that we reference as attachments our ordinances regarding sidewalk dining and design review, and the ones that were attached did not account for your most recent revision. So we'll provide the updated ordinances as attachments to the final license agreement. With that, I'll stop and take questions.
Just two questions. On the blue sheet, the third paragraph mentions Mr. Blake and Wheat State as the prospective purchaser. Correct. Is that
Correct.
Are we making an agreement on the assumption that he will be, or can we make an agreement with him as the prospective
Yeah,
purchaser?
in the event that it does, he is the other part, Wheat State is the other
Right.
party to the agreement. So in the event that that doesn't happen, then the license agreement would be null and void. This is basically putting everything in place so that he can have the confidence to go ahead and carry through with the purchase.
Right. And on the reservations, during the last 90 days, is it open to public and SDI, and I'll get the name together soon.
Wheat State?
Weed State, that's, I'm trying to remember the name of the prickly pear. So anyone can schedule the last 90 days, or is it exclusive to the public for the last 90 days?
Yeah, anyone could schedule.
I mean, any one of those, public, Weed
Correct.
State, or SDI?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
It's just kind of giving that lead time to SDI first and the prickly pear second, and then, whether that's Super Bowl Sunday or the Royals make it to the World Series, prickly pear is probably going to be interested in those, but then we can backfill them with
Okay, so if
other
a,
reservations.
let's just say a nonprofit in town knew ahead of time they wanted to schedule something 7 months out, they should go through SDI?
Correct.
to do
Yeah, the reservation process SDI is our designee, so it would be through SDI or whatever our designated process is.
Okay.
But I have to say, Mr. Blake was very accommodating in terms of, recognizing kind of the community aspect of it, and I think his sense was that's helpful for their business as well.
Just one sort of practical question. I'm assuming that you want to use the outdoor seating to serve guests.
Absolutely.
Now, if someone, unless I'm reading this wrong, if someone just wants to come in there and sit, how do you politely say, well, we're trying to serve our customers here? And that, could you leave? But I mean, how does that work?
For sure. Well, and again, Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for having us and hearing us and helping us flesh this out. I first, like the city staff has been fantastic in numerous meetings and putting all of this together. To answer that question directly, we want this to be an enhancement to that plaza that we view as underutilized and underused to this point, and we understand that it's going to be open to the public. We're going to find a solution that works. We want it to be welcoming to everyone. We're not going to ask that individual to leave. If you want to come down and eat, read a book, enjoy our free Wi-Fi, by all means. We want this to be a gathering place for the city of Salina. We view this project and this concept as what we hope will become the unofficial front porch of downtown. And we really want this to be a gathering point. And I think, as the city manager pointed out, we've really tried to work with Arts and Humanities and SDI, and we want to complement all of their programming. We don't want to replace it. We want to have a lot more, frankly. And to your point on the nonprofit, I welcome that event. I'm happy to host it. If it's a wine walk check-in, or if it's a pick your project that we currently have in place, a sculpture tour, by all means, have it in that plaza. We would love to serve that crowd throughout the event, and before and after. I welcome that crowd. So,
Thank you.
Questions? I'm not sure whether these questions are for Mr. Blake or for staff, so I'm just going to, probably a little of both, so I'm just going to go ahead and start down my list here real quick. In the event that we proceed with Campbell Plaza as is and execute the finished project as it was originally intended, we've lost what, at least 1.5 years, 2 years on this project?
Yeah, I don't know the exact timing, but yes, there's been quite a delay, and we expect there'd be a cost increase just to complete
Just for the
the
delay.
original scope.
So if we were to decide to go ahead and proceed with Campbell Plaza, what's the earliest date that we could get it completed by, and what's going to be our cost increase because of the delay?
May have to rely
Any
on-
sense on that?
Jim, do you? We've had that conversation as staff. Staff's been in contact with Smoky Hill, and one of the things we have to do is be accommodating of their schedule. They've moved on to other work, so we don't have the ability to just kind of force them to pick the project back up. So I know that there's anticipated sizable cost increases, and I don't know that we know a definitive completion date.
Okay, because, I mean, right now, it's listed as $160,000, more or less, as to complete it as originally proposed. But we know that there's going to be significant inflation and significant delay because of
Yeah, I'd say
remobilizing.
both of those are fair, yes.
And do we have any sense on the timing of getting them back to complete the project?
I didn't hear the last part because I was trying to get the answer to the first part.
Basically,
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, Jim Toich, Public Works.
cost inflation and revised timeline to remobilize Smoky Hill.
In reverse order, revised timeline is, we think is going to be this winter before they would be able to begin work. And I don't have the figure with me. I seem to recall that it was in the neighborhood of $280,000 to do the project as originally designed.
Okay, thank you. You might stay there just for a minute. Are the planters holding up the building at this point? Because I noticed that those haven't been demoed, and I don't know that they were going to stay there in the original plan. Are they a structural element of that building at this point?
No, I think they stayed because of the interrelationship and trying to work in close proximity, but the whole intention was to let them get their wall secured before we took the planters out.
Okay, so the planters aren't going to pose a structural issue to, the removal of the planters are not going to, okay, okay.
If they do today, they won't by the time we get done.
Correct.
That wall's going to have to be self-supporting.
Right. I saw that there's like an $80,000 figure to complete the new stage that would be in the Ad Astra parking lot, which I think is, sometimes you guys are like hopeless optimistic, optimists. I mean, I was like, $80,000, come on. Is that in any way, shape, or form going to deal with like the resurfacing of that parking lot? Or is that just specifically to build a new stage and to erect the overhead structure?
Right. The surface maintenance was already our responsibility, just as part of our normal programming, so we didn't include that number in
Right.
this estimate.
But it is included in the 2021 mill and inlay program, so we do have it scheduled.
Okay, so that parking lot is going to be addressed this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, okay. Let's see, so that's going to mean that SDI is programming 3 stages downtown? I mean, do they program the 67401 Plaza? So you're going to have 2 stages in the same parking lot, another stage, Campbell Plaza, so they're going to be programming 3 stages. Is that with the proposal as it is?
Potentially. I don't know that they'll all be programmed at the same time, but it creates options. And
Okay.
Brad Anderson's probably the most knowledgeable on that.
Brad Anderson, Director of Arts and Humanities. I can't speak directly for SDI, but I can explain a little bit about what my knowledge of the current level of programming. Salina Arts and Humanities has utilized some of its annual programming dollars to program for Campbell Plaza or for local businesses that wanted to integrate arts programming into their annual plans and programs. And lately, the Ad Astra Plaza, or the plaza just to the north of Ad Astra, has been an area that we've utilized in part because Campbell Plaza hasn't been available both during construction and after. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with board members of Salina Downtown, or board members and staff from Salina Downtown, and our staff, to further articulate kind of those partnerships and those opportunities to program and to schedule. I will say from a community arts basis, we were cautious when the request first came up, but also very optimistic about this opportunity to have additional places to program arts and entertainment, especially with an upcoming articulation of a new arts and entertainment district that you'll be considering in the coming months, that the stakeholders for downtown Salina Arts and Humanities and the Lauren Driscoll's Department Public or Community Services or Development Services will all be coming together. So I think with the revitalization of the downtown, what Mr. Blake has expressed in terms of wanting to activate that area in an ongoing way. We've heard the words public and private partnership before, but we're excited about the opportunity to have more places to program and to energize, to enliven the downtown than less. And so while there are certainly both budgetary and functional challenges with that, SDI has additional funding as part of the new development agreement of the downtown for programming specifically. I don't know exactly how much they had planned on utilizing or allocating for programming directly, but I know that there is more money than there was prior to the reconstruction of the downtown. And so we're looking forward to that opportunity to energize in each of those spaces as they come available.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Just in terms of looking at the contingency or the remaining funds we have in the Star Bonds project, I notice there's planner repair estimates of $25,000, drainage issue estimates of $25,000, and additional bollards. The drainage issues I had some questions about. Is that not something that was that the contractor would perform as?
They are, but the thinking was that we may find drainage issues that we're responsible for that we need to hold some funds back for.
Okay. And I know that this may not be the conversation for right now, but wouldn't the engineering and design firm bear some responsibility for that as well, unless the sidewalks weren't executed according to their specifications?
Yeah.
Or no?
And I'll let Jim answer, but we talked about that, and I think his thinking is leaving him some funds to discretionarily say, we want to do more. We want to put a drain here. We want to go above and beyond in terms of solution.
There are a few areas. We had a punch list. I don't remember. Perhaps Dan remembers that we had a punch list. I think of 10 or 12 locations that we felt had drainage issues. We met with the contractor. They subsequently fixed many of those locations. We still have some more work to do with them, and that is all at their expense. I have additional concerns that maybe go beyond what the original design was, and it isn't something that that I would say. I can't speak to whether it's the contractor or not, but it seems to me that There may be some improvements that we need to make in the future regarding drainage. And as Mike mentioned, it's honestly more, there's a few areas that I think that we may end up needing to install drains or something like that. And I would like to, I just want to be honest, make sure that we have enough funds to make those kinds of repairs should we find the need in the future. Obviously, we wouldn't do it if we didn't, if we didn't have that need, then we wouldn't spend that portion of the money.
Right. And in terms of the planter repairs, I was just curious as to what those were.
So this is just something that I've noticed since I've been here. I've been downtown several times looking at the project, and I've noticed that while the planters were installed in accordance with the plans, they are, sawed and everything, but I've also noticed some cracking and some of the concrete itself chipping away. So I've had several thoughts. We're looking at the possibility in the future of having to skim coat those, making repairs, cutting out sections of curb that is just bad, that needs to be fully replaced. And then the possibility of looking for a surface material to put over top of the skim coating if the skim coating wouldn't be enough. And again, this may be me being overly precautious, but I felt it important enough to speak to the city manager about it. And I think it's important that we think about setting some money aside to protect our investment in the future.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And again, I think this is maybe a discussion to have at a different time.
I understand that, but we've also got to be responsible for how we use our remaining streetscape funds,
Right.
too.
My question, two-part question. First of all, and I wasn't here during this last large rain we have, but the work that they have done to the prior places we asked for them to deal with the drainage, do those seem to be working correctly?
Yes, they made some very good improvements. I did ask them to come back. They did the work and then they went out of town on another project, but they fully intend to come back. I asked them to come back because while it works, I didn't really like the aesthetics of it and I thought we should do better. And so they agreed they will come back and make sure that the bricks are properly set in place and that it looks uniform while still providing the drainage that's necessary for that area.
And again, being involved with Sculpture Tour, I spent, considerable time down there a couple weeks ago, and I did notice the cracking. I was going to bring that up on the planters. Would that not be some type of a guarantee or some type of?
It could be. It's a relatively new topic. We are going to have to pursue that.
I was surprised at the amount of cracking in some of them, and to me, based on the timeline of when those were installed, again, I think that should fall on the contractor, but.
Oh, I think I have photos from a year ago when we were talking about a punch list, and I went around, and the cracks have been there as long as a year ago.
And we haven't definitively reached a conclusion. This is just kind of a holdback in the event that we need some funds to address it.
Okay.
I do want to clarify my comment earlier. Dan immediately flagged me and said, Jim, I don't think that 280 is right. He pulled up the email from the contractor, and the contractor did say that they could still complete the project at 160. I do not remember why I'm remembering a larger amount. I'm not sure, but I wanted to clarify that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
That says a lot about that contractor. I'll give him that. Give him credit.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, Mr. Blake, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is there anything that you wanted to present to the commission at this point, or anything further?
I'm open to questions at this point,
Okay.
without the risk of being redundant, keeping you here longer than you need to be, but I'm definitely available for questions.
Any questions for Mr. Blake? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, when are you planning on opening? Which is probably what everybody at home wants to know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, October 1st is our target date right now. We're looking to go as fast as possible. We feel we're about a year behind on the project, and October 1st, November 1st, this fall. And that's what time's really been of the essence throughout this whole process. And city staff has just gone above and beyond to help us expedite this and get back in front of y'all. And we really appreciate it. And is we want it to be a project that it is done the right way, but it can really be something special to bring to downtown Salina.
All right.
Thank you for saying so.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. If there aren't any further questions for staff, I will open it up for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
Abner Perney, of course, I lived there adjacent to, in the 129 building, adjacent to Campbell Plaza for 14 years. This revised plan from the Prickly Pear organization, I like that name, is much better than it was earlier. I like the idea that it is going to a license agreement, and that it did take into account my big concern of having 24/7 pedestrian access between the parking lots and Santa Fe. So I'm in favor of the present proposal so far as I can tell, except I was a little, since I didn't get to see the plans until just now on the screen, I was a little concerned about, again, the whole concept of having the Campbell Plaza canopy, the present stage canopy, moved to Ash and Santa Fe. I think that will work out all right. I like the idea that the decorative metal and the coloring goes with the bridges and the crossovers, and that will all, that would still look good and be out where people would see it. It does trouble me we have so many outdoor stages, so if there's a money bind, I would think that we could delete the small stage in Campbell Plaza in its entirety and just go with the one a block and a half away up at Ad Astra. And as far as the 67401 one is so small, it's almost irrelevant, so just leave it alone. Occasionally we've seen pickup groups of customers and people that in Ad Astra go out and play there in the afternoon with no permit and no formalities or anything, just guys getting together and jamming. So that's been kind of cool a couple of times I've seen it happen. At any rate, I'm eager to see this go through. It's been a long time on Campbell Plaza being closed and torn up.
Thank you, Mr. Perney. Mr. McDowell, I would remind you that we still do have a mask ordinance officially in place, and I'd ask that you wear it when you speak at the podium. Thank you.
Dalton, City of Salina. Only concern I see with that picture, with that where that placement of that stage is visibility on that corner. Because it looks to me like it's going to be right up next to the sidewalk, and visibility with that stop, with the light right there.
Thank you.
Hello, Guy Walker, Salinas 2020. I just wanted to share our support for the project. Just a few things that I thought were worth mentioning, and I know Tim touched on some of them, but one of the reasons we felt so strongly about supporting it and a 30% incentive was the fact that it's unique for downtown, the food offering, and really the concept, I think, with that big of an outdoor area is kind of unique for the whole city. We thought that was pretty, a really neat thing for downtown, and especially to hear Tim describe it as the front porch for downtown, which I think, every downtown should have something like that that really draws people in, and we think that is just really great. Something that, to me, it's a neat way to kind of leverage that public space and to have somebody who's willing to keep it clean and serve food and, and drinks and things like that is pretty awesome. So that the city doesn't have to do it, and, SDI doesn't have to do it. It's a private business doing it. And it's a locally owned person who has a successful track record, which is also really encouraging. I know one thing I know it's never easy to contemplate spending extra money, but it is a good way to leverage, I feel like, the private investment into the building, saving a very, very, very dilapidated building as well. And they're going to, I think the city's payback and the citizens of Salina's payback is the revenue projection that they have is really strong, and the sales tax that'll generate for the district and for the city should easily pay back, I think, what the city is being asked to spend. So anyway, I just wanted to share Salina 2020 support and thank Mike and Tim for working late trying to get it in on Thursday. So any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Walker?
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Guy didn't give himself credit. He was right along with Tim and I slogging through it, so.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Any questions or comments online? No? Okay, I will bring it back to the commission for further discussion or action.
Well, there's some question marks where there are usually periods here.
I apologize. That's my fault, too. That was a placeholder while I got the titles of the documents. I think you're probably better off on the front page. Item A and B are the action items. Your options are to authorize execution of the license agreement and the transfer agreement, to authorize them with amendments, to postpone their consideration, or to deny them.
Okay. Mayor, I move to authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement with Weed State Hospitality Incorporated.
Second.
We have a motion.
Good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no, it was a good place to cut me off. Okay.
We have a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a license agreement with Wheat State Hospitality Incorporated. Could we have a roll call?
Do we need a second on
I
that?
thought
didn't
Commissioner
hear you.
Ryan,
Okay, I
sorry,
didn't hear. Okay.
Commissioner Ryan
Okay.
seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Nay. And that motion passes 3-1. The next item for the authorization for the transferee agreement. Is there a motion?
Yeah, Mayor, I move to authorize the city manager to execute a transferee agreement with Wheat State Hospitality Incorporated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the city manager to execute a transferee agreement with Wheat State Hospitality Incorporated. And I am going to vote for this item because I think that if Salina 2020 endorses it, and this is a use of the CID funding that we want to see, that's all well and good. I do have reservations about the plans or for executing Campbell Plaza and for Ad Astra, a stage at the corner of Ash and Santa Fe for the new Ad Astra performance stage. If we could have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. That motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
And I hope that Tim and West Blake make as good at tacos as they do ribs. So we'll
That would be great.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Got so many papers running around here. All right, item 7.2.
Item 7.2, approve resolution number 21-7958, authorizing the city manager to sign a service agreement with OCCK, Inc. for 2021.
Oh, that's right. Ms.
gonna
Pack
be
isn't
me.
here. I was looking for her.
Thank you, Mayor and
so-
Commissioners.
Yes.
Ms. Pack wasn't able to be here, and I'm going to take this report. As you well know, we partially fund a number of services that OCCK provides. Not the full breadth of the services that they offer, nor do we fully fund their offerings. But we do provide funding for fixed route public transit, modified paratransit, and then we contribute funds to annual capital improvements. And typically, they receive 70% of their funds from the Kansas Department of Transportation, and we supplement the other 30%. We learned a couple of lessons through COVID. They were able, KDOT stepped up last year and funded at 100% all the way through June of this year. And so we took that into account as part of our budget preparation for 2021. And so our payment will be beginning shortly. We enter into an annual agreement with OCCK, and so this is a renewal of that agreement with a couple of revisions. One being, and they are redlined in the staff report that you received. One of those, accounting for the possibility of a decrease in funding. We really hadn't anticipated that previously, but in that experience with receiving grant funds, it provides for a proportional reduction in city funding. And then the other is just the formalizing the process for changes in fees on the part of OCCK. As part of the COVID, their response, they offered up free fares and things like that. And again, we hadn't really contemplated significant changes in fares, just promotional fares previously. So this is really just a renewal with those two revisions and accounting for the reduced funding level for 2021. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I can see that Pat Wallerius is here to answer questions as well from OCCK.
Thank you, Mr. Scragg. Are there any questions for Mr. Scragg or Mr. Wallerius?
No.
No? All right, I will open it up for public comments. Are there any members of the public that have questions or would like to comment on this item? All right, it can be a quick one. I'll return it to the commission for further action or discussion.
Mayor, I move approval of resolution number 21-7958, authorizing the city manager to sign a service agreement with OCCK Incorporated to formalize the funding request that was approved during the 2021 budget process.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 21-7958, authorizing the city manager to sign a service agreement with OCCK Incorporated for 2021. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Mayor Hodges.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. All right. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my revised 7.3?
Yes. Thanks. Item 7.3, approve charter ordinance number 40 exempting the city of Salina from the provisions of KSA 12-1697 and providing substitute and additional provisions on the same subject relating to the promotion of tourism and convention, authorizing the levying of a transient guest tax by cities, and repealing charter ordinance 35.
Mr. Wood.
Mayor and Commissioners, Deputy City Manager Jacob Wood. Over the last couple of years, we've talked about this item a few times. Most recently, the City Commission requested that we bring this forward in April. So April 5th, we had a discussion about increasing the transient guest tax for baseball-related items. At that time, the City Commission asked that we postpone it for 1 week to allow us to notify hoteliers, people that might be impacted by an increase in transient guest tax, that we would be having a discussion. We did that, and then on April 12th, we had another discussion, and the City Commission asked that we postpone again to kind of get through our strategic planning session that was held on May 5th. So here we are. At the strategic planning session, there was discussion about the transient guest tax and using it for baseball-related projects. At the time, the City Commission indicated there may be interest in increasing the transient guest tax to 7.75% rather than the 8% that was discussed previously. So the charter ordinance that it's attached here reflects that request to go to 7.75%. As you know, this is a charter ordinance, so it does take a 2/3 majority or 4 votes of the City Commission to pass. And this is charter ordinance has a little bit more process than a regular ordinance. It has to have a first and second reading. It'll be public. There'll be publications, and then there's also a protest period that will allow the public time to put in a petition if they would like for this to not go through. I'd be at this point, the 7.75, the only remaining thing I'll mention is the 7.75% is expected to bring in about $293,000 annually, which would support a debt of about $2.5 million if we finance that over a 10-year period. The previous staff report goes into much greater detail, but I won't go through all of that tonight. But I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point. I did also want to mention that I did send out notice again to the hoteliers about this meeting and this discussion, and we didn't receive any response. So with that, I will be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Any questions?
I have just one question on page 2, of the that's the actual ordinance. There's a breakdown of how the 6.7% current transient guest tax is distributed. Is this increase now, I'm trying to do the math real quick, 1.25% increase going to be designated specifically for this project, or right now that will be done later? And the reason I'm asking is, I'd really like to see this, termed money set aside for athletic facilities of economic development potential, for two reasons. One, so that if we get a whole boatload of money, other suitable uses could apply for the money.
So the ordinance that's in front of you today, all it does is give you the authority to increase the transient guest tax. The breakdown of how we have transient guest tax divided right now would stay the same.
Right.
At a later date, we'll come back with another ordinance that will actually do the increase of the tax. And between now and then, the City Commission did ask that we go back and look at CARM and some of the other things. I anticipate we'll be having those discussions over the summer. And if there are changes to be made, we'll bring
So
those
the
forward at that
actual
time.
distribution will be handled, or the relative distribution would be
That's
at a
correct.
later date. Okay, thank you.
The 290,000, what was that based on as far as total transient sales? What did you use to come up with the 290?
I don't have the actual total sales. It was the average of the last 3 years before
Okay,
COVID.
so you used the,
And Debbie's not here to answer that question, so.
I think and I don't know.
at the bottom of the,
Yeah, it's based on the same numbers that are in the staff report. We have a spreadsheet, and we just plug in a different
which that's probably,
percentage rate, so it
that's
should
probably
be
a
about
little
the same.
high for the next year or so, I'm guessing.
I think the difference is the assumed term. We're dialed in on a 10-year term with that 2.5 number, 2.5 million.
Any other questions? I just have a couple. The first is, just to make sure, and I believe I've asked this before of Ms. Pack, and she's confirmed, the backstop for this, if we do not have sufficient revenues in our transient guest tax funds, would be the general fund, correct?
It would be the general fund or the sales tax fund if you wanted to take it out of the allocation for parks.
Gotcha. And then, and this is the part that I'm sure that I've asked Debbie about before, but whether we make that payment from transient guest tax sales revenues or we make them from parks or general funds, does it matter to our bond council as long as those payments are being made? Does the source of revenue matter?
No, I don't. I think we would have that flexibility. Transient guest tax has limited eligible uses of those funds, but we could certainly take that into account on the front end as we finance to keep our options open. If the concern is that we may have to backstop it, we could make provision for that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make sure that like a backstop provision that we made wouldn't result in a downgrade for our bonds if we said, oh, we're going to pay this using transient guest tax, and actually, no, we're going to go ahead and use it for sales tax.
Right. When I say backstop, it really just kind of keeping our options open. So
Okay.
I think if we failed to make payment, that can impact our bond.
Yeah,
rating. But
absolutely.
Beyond that, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, I just didn't know if the source of the payment made any
And
difference.
Mayor
or
Hodge,
not.
I guess you're talking about if we decide to fund somebody, if we decide to fund some debt servicing with the transient guest taxes, which we've
correct.
not decided yet how much we're going to fund through.
Right,
Okay,
right, but
okay. Right.
yes, exactly. I think you said that a lot better than I did. Okay, and then, so at this point, this change in the charter ordinance doesn't anticipate any like sunset date, it's just ongoing, correct? I mean, we're not saying, okay, we're going to do it for 10 years and then it's over.
Correct.
This is a new tax and it's ongoing.
And you could, at the next go-around, when you actually approve the increase of the tax, you could put a sunset date on it if you wanted to. This just simply gives us authorization to go up to that bottom level of 7.75. So what happens within that 7.75 is up to the commission.
Okay, and then my final question is, we have to do a charter ordinance on this item for the transient guest tax. Are we going to be anticipating another charter ordinance change in terms of the funding for the parks project? Like, don't we have statutory limits, like over $1 million bonded? We have to do a change in our charter ordinance on that. I don't remember what exactly the limit was, but
I believe that's correct, that there would be another charter ordinance change, but we really need to define what the project is and the total costs and who, I mean, if Baseball Enterprises is involved and they're spending a certain dollar amount, we really just don't have all that, the details of what the actual project is fleshed out yet to give us enough detail to change that charter ordinance. But as soon as we have that information, we certainly would have to change that charter ordinance.
yeah, and here's what I'm just trying to ensure, that like our timelines align for this. In other words, let's say we go ahead and we proceed with this charter ordinance change, and there's not a challenge, or there's an unsuccessful challenge, and then we have to do another charter ordinance change, and then there's another challenge to that. I mean, it's like, I would hope that we could kind of sync up those processes so that we could proceed with some sort of certainty, not get to a certain point, like all of a sudden it's November, we have to change the other charter ordinance, and then we've got to go back to that whole timeline with having, the protest period, the option for the election, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just wanted to see, are we contemplating doing a second charter ordinance change to exceed our
The
limits on?
second one would be necessitated by debt financing and the size of that debt financing. So
Okay.
if we get this revenue source in place, I think we could pursue options that don't require that charter ordinance change. It really depends on, as Jacob said, kind of what we do, what Baseball Enterprises might be willing to do, how we structure that. But I understand your concern that, if in a certain configuration, then a second charter ordinance amendment might be needed. But I don't know that we're going to know that in a time frame that syncs up with this decision.
Thank you.
We can try to avoid it more so than synchronize it.
Well, and I don't want to do something like we did with the irrigation project, where we broke it up into year-by-year things to avoid hitting that statutory ceiling, because I thought that was kind of a manipulation of the process. But at any rate, I just wanted us to at least be aware that that's something that might be on the horizon. If there aren't any further questions for staff, I'll turn it over to the public. Are there any comments or questions from the public? And I don't see anyone with their virtual hand raised, so I'll bring it back to the commission for further discussion or action.
Mayor, I move we approve Charter Ordinance Number 40, exempting the city of Salina from the provisions of KSA 12-1697 and providing substitute and additional provisions on the same subject relating to the promotion of tourism and convention, authorizing the levying of a transient guest tax by cities, and repealing the Charter Ordinance 35.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, to approve Charter Ordinance Number 40. Could we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoppick?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan?
Aye.
Mayor Hodges?
Aye. And that motion passes 4-0. Item 7.4.
Item 7.4, City Commission appointment to fill vacancy.
All right. Mr. Scragg, do you want to start us off, or do you want me to start?
I can certainly start us. I don't know that I have anything to share that you don't already know, but I'll try to keep it brief. On April 28th, we officially received Commissioner Rod Franz's resignation. You had a conversation on May 3rd about the process to fill that vacancy, and the agreed upon approach at that point was that you wanted to communicate an application deadline of May 12th have it in your packet on May 17th, which would have been last Thursday. I say solicit applications by way of expression of interest forms, and have those in your packet by May 17th, which was last Thursday. At that time, you had some conversation about you didn't know what to expect in the way of response, so the goal would be to take it up at today's meeting, but kind of reserving the option to take additional time if you felt like the numbers were, a number of applications necessitated that, but didn't really speak about a number in particular. So we've received 11 expression of interest forms. Kay Crawford was one of the applicants, and she subsequently withdrawn her application, indicated that she wasn't sure whether you'd get good turnout, was volunteering herself up in the event that that might be the case, but seeing how many applications you did receive, she chose to then withdraw. As we've discussed before, there's very few specific statutory or ordinance requirements about the process of filling a vacancy, other than it's by a majority of the remaining commissioners, and the person appointed has to be a qualified elector in Salina in terms of residency and those qualifications. I did attach to the staff report a couple of things, one being your rules of procedure. And a couple things of note there. You, by the rules of procedure, have adopted the Robert's Rules of Order as kind of a backstop of procedural issues that we don't rely on directly all that much, but felt like it might be applicable in this instance. And then specifically, I excerpted, highlighted, and attached Chapter 14 of the Robert's Rules of Order as it relates to nominations and elections. And so took the liberty of highlighting that. And I did also try to point out that the rules of order of procedure grant some discretion to the mayor in terms of presiding over the meeting. In the event that you individually or as a group want to kind of deviate from the rules of procedure or Robert's Rules of Order, you could do that by consensus if there's a general consensus among you, or if there's not obvious consensus, you could do that by a motion and a vote to whatever that procedural topic might be. Robert's Rules of Order itself offers, it isn't directly written for the purpose of city commissions, obviously, doesn't take into account some of the things that we have to deal with, but it does talk about taking nominations from the floor, and provides that the member does not need to be recognized and a second is not required. It also offers up that, kind of when it appears that no one else wishes to make a nomination, then that's when the chair would close the opportunity to make nominations. And voting can be by different methods, but ballot really isn't an option for you. As being a public meeting, it needs to be a public vote. And so it talks about a roll call vote, which we talked about earlier this evening in terms of just the necessity of us doing that. And then it also talks about a viva voce election, meaning that you vote on if there's multiple nominees, you vote on them in the order nominated, and then at the point that the first one that obtains a majority vote, then you're done. You've made your selection. So with that, you have copies of all of the expression of interest forms. And I'll get out of your way and let you deliberate on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Scragg. Well, first of all, I think we all want to, if Commissioner France or his family, if they're watching this evening, we want to wish him all the best in his ongoing recovery. And I do want to thank all the citizens who put in their expression of interest forms. It's really heartening to see the quality and the quantity that we received. I would suggest that we start working through the 3 questions that staff posed to us on page 2. Based upon the number of applications received, does the City Commission wish to make the appointment on May 17th, or do we prefer to set another date? Do you feel prepared and ready to make an appointment today?
I'm prepared to make one today. If we can't do it, then I'll be prepared next Monday, but I'm prepared to do it
All right.
today.
I wanted to make sure I'm going. Mr. Scragg set some good questions. I'm going through them here. Are we going to, I'm looking to all of us here, go ahead and follow the process as outlined in Robert's Rules of Order, where we open the floor for nominations. Nominations are received, and then we vote on each nominee? Or do you see another way that you would like to propose handling that?
And I'm sorry, just to clarify.
Did I not?
No. Well, my understanding is hypothetically, you could open it for nominations. Each one of you could nominate someone. You
Exactly.
could have 4 nominees, and then you would vote in the order that
They were nominated. Right. I'm sorry.
After having gone through this before, it's very tough when in effect you're voting for someone, you're voting against someone else. And, looking at the list of candidates here, I think there's only one that I don't know personally, and probably none of you would I not trust my kids to be with. So it makes comments that we're going to make difficult sometimes and sensitive. But I don't, since we're not allowed to do secret ballots, I don't know.
I don't anticipate.
I just thought maybe there'd be a last-minute reprieve and somebody would change the law, but I guess not.
I don't see us going all 1979 South Middle School mean girls on this, but, but I can throw down if necessary. But are we all okay just in terms of the process, of that being the process that we open for nominations, we receive the nominations, and then we vote on each candidate in the order that they were nominated? Are we okay with that process?
Sure. Yeah, so do we make comments about the applicant, or we just make the nomination and that's?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I was proposing.
Yeah.
The third question is specific discussion and consensus
That's right there.
on the process of the governing body wishes to utilize to deliberate on the nominees. Last week, I had specifically reached out and invited the applicants who had submitted an expression of interest to be here at the meeting today, and told them that they would have the opportunity to speak if they wished. And the reason that I'd like to justify that is, while we are casting a vote to replace a member of one of us on the governing body, one of you candidates that is selected tonight is going to be speaking for the people. And I just want to allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself, to tell people why you want to be a commissioner. And for those of you that are former commissioners, you're certainly welcome to share successes, things you wish you would, you want to get accomplished. Because ultimately, our deliberations tonight are taking the place of an actual election. And 2 of us here were appointed and subsequently had those appointments validated by election results. But
I have a quick
possibly, so to avoid us making campaign speeches for the nominees, we could do a round of nominations amongst us, and then if those candidates are present, if they wish to get up and speak, they could. At the one time I participated in this process, I believe the mayor at the time went through kind of the chairs here in our order,
Okay.
and the nominations were made and dealt with individually. But in this case, possibly, it's your discretion. You might want to hear from all of us, and then we take the list and see if we can get there.
Do you want to, all right, I'm looking at the other 2. Do you want to start with the nominations and invite those nominees to speak?
Yeah,
or would you like to
my
do-
question was, and I guess because I know you made a short comment at the end of last week or last week's meeting, was each candidate personally invited to be here today?
No, that was a remark I made during other business last week.
I have a little trouble since they weren't invited personally to attend. I guess
That might be a point, and
Okay.
there are some of those that aren't here.
yeah.
The only thing I would want to do before I would make a nomination would be I only had 4 criteria that I used, and whittling the list down, so to speak. And but
Is there any interest
think
in
my-
sharing the criteria before we?
no, I'd be more than happy to share it, although I think the point that Commissioner Hoppick just maybe may take precedence. But, and we had several criteria that we used, was it 4 years ago now? 5, almost? About 5 years ago. But the ones that, for me, that were most important is experience as a prior city commissioner or a substitute equivalent experience. The candidate has to be able to digest the amount of new information that we're presented weekly, form opinions, and debate the issues in a collegial manner, even when not agreeing with other commissioners. As a commissioner, I feel that we're the interface between the citizens at large and city administration. The ability to listen through the rhetoric and decipher the message trying to be conveyed is of utmost importance. And while it's difficult in a small city to not be touched by any of the institutions, businesses, projects, and ideas that come before the commission on any given day, it's better, I think, from an image perspective, if an appointed interim commissioner entered with as little perceived or real conflicts of interest. And I don't know that that would necessarily apply, but it was when I looked at the 4 things that would, I think, make it easy to have the public accept whoever we nominate, those were the most important to me.
Thank you. Commissioner Hoppick, Commissioner Ryan, I don't know if you want to say anything. Just to share what my evaluation criteria is going to be is, number one, I thought that our overwhelming consensus a couple weeks ago was on experience. And I think that's really important. I think previous commission experience is a plus, but not a disqualifier if it's not there. Frankly, while I didn't extend personally the invitation to all applicants to be here tonight, I would suggest that someone who applied to serve on this commission who isn't here either in person or virtually, who didn't make the time or didn't make the time to reach out and say, hey, I can't be here, but I want you to know, that I'm still very interested. To me, if the applicant isn't in the audience, that's a disqualifier for me, because this job, it takes a lot of time, and if you don't have the time or the passion to show up at the initial, nomination, that's just, for me, unfortunately, that's just a non-starter. And with that,
Could I just go muddy the water?
you bet.
But when I was being considered for appointment to fill Barb Shirley's term, I actually didn't know that I was allowed to be here for the deliberation,
Okay,
and I was not here for that meeting.
gotcha.
Obviously, I know more now than I knew then, but, and I don't know what whoever's not here's take on the attendance perspective was, but that might be an explanation.
Yeah, and one of the things I looked at, and I know there's an individual that does not have city commission experience, but has been in the community an extended period of time and has significant financial background. And when we were looking to replace, Rod was kind of a person that I leaned on a little bit for some of the, as we're talking about budgets and funding and stuff. So to me, one of the important criteria is somebody that maybe has some ability to crunch some numbers and do some financial stuff. So I think we all have our own reasons we would nominate somebody. So I don't know.
having said all that, I'm ready to go. So,
All right.
Do we have an order, do you have an order in place?
Well,
Or-
here's what I was thinking. Commissioner Davis, has the roll call every week since we've gone to roll call, because we do it by alphabetical order, and we end with me. And I think that as maybe the single reward for having to step out and make that first vote for the last however many months, I just assumed we do it alphabetically, unless someone has a better suggestion. And I'm happy to go last as presiding officer, if at all.
Or we could,
Fine with that.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
in that case, I nominate Randall Hardy.
All right. I'll open my page here to make sure that I have the correct verbiage. All right, so Randall, we have, of course, I'm not going to be able to find the right page. All right.
Oh, and the Robert's Rule.
All right, well, I will say that we have the nomination of Randall Hardy. Next, I will turn to Commissioner Hoppick for his nomination.
Mayor Hodges, I make a motion that we fill the unexpired term of Rod Franz with Douglas K. Alt.
All right, we have the nomination of Douglas Alt and Commissioner Ryan.
I would move we accept the nomination of Aaron Peck.
All right, and we have from Commissioner Ryan the nomination of Aaron Peck. And I just want to say I would be happy with any of those three candidates, and I don't have one to add for myself. I am looking at you all, though, to see, I don't know Mr. Alt, and I know Mr. Peck, but I don't see him in the audience. Would you care to allow any of the members that are here to speak, or do you want to proceed directly with a vote?
It feels like we can make short work of this.
I would proceed with the vote.
Okay. All right. If there are no further nominations for,
Should I move that the nomination cease?
yes, let's see. I'm reading my script, Commissioner Ryan. You got to let me get my finger down to the, I know you're trying to speed this up, but I got to get my finger down to the right line, okay? Okay, so understanding that there are no further nominations, I'm going to declare that the nominations for City Commissioner are closed. Let's see, without objection, nominations are closed, and the voting will take place beginning with Randall Hardy. And we will have a roll call vote for the election of Randall Hardy to the City Commission. Am I doing that correctly, Mr. Bankston, or would you prefer to have a show of hands, or?
No, I think you're doing very well, Mayor. My only point was kind of circling back to our earlier discussion. I
Right.
don't know that I'm able to ascertain fully whether anybody is on the phone or not, but if you preferred to have a show
Just
of hands
or a voice vote?
or a voice vote,
Okay.
depending on whether we have anybody strictly on the telephone rather than
There are none at this time.
by
Okay.
Zoom, you have latitude in how you conduct the vote, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankston. I appreciate that clarification. All right, concerning the nomination of Randall Hardy for the City Commission seat, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we have 2 ayes and 2 nays. In the nomination of Douglas Alt, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, we have 2-2 there. My question to you, Mr. Bankston, we go through all of them? Yeah, never mind, I answered my own question. In the nomination of Aaron Peck for the City Commission seat, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
And that passes 3-1. And Mr. Aaron Peck will be our new Salina City Commissioner. And I don't think that he is here, but Aaron, if you're watching, I've known you since you were about 10 years old, and I am really looking forward to having a younger member here on the commission. So Aaron Peck will be our new city commissioner. When is your anticipated swearing-in date, Mr. Scragg? Can we do that at the next meeting?
Yeah, when I scheduled my vacation, I didn't contemplate orienting a new commissioner, but we will certainly get that ready for the next meeting. I'll reach out to Mr. Peck in the meantime.
Absolutely, and I think, I mean, he has the advantage of having served before. I know it's been a few years, but at any rate, even if staff is not able to complete like an orientation, I'd still like it if he could be sworn in at the next meeting. And
Certainly. And we'll
I don't know if it would be
distribute the packet to
appropriate.
him and get it prepped for him to be sworn in so he can participate next week.
And I don't know if it's appropriate at that time, but I would like to offer a resolution of gratitude and best wishes for Commissioner France in his recovery, because he and his family have been so gracious throughout this whole really difficult process, and they made it as easy for us as they could, and that takes a lot of grace in a very difficult time.
I would certainly concur with pressing matters beyond what concerned us here in our operations. They handled it very well.
All right, is there any other business to be brought before the commission?
One question for the city attorney. What is the procedure for changing one's vote?
The offhand, I would say well, let me, if I may explore that a little bit. I'm trying to give you what I expect everyone would prefer, and that would be the easiest answer. Were you speaking of your vote on
Mr. Peck.
Mr. Peck's candidacy?
Yes.
I think, unless anyone else objects, I think you could simply note a change in your vote. That is helpful in that it would not affect the ultimate outcome. Had it affected the outcome, I think we would have had to gone through the whole reconsideration process. But under these circumstances, I wouldn't think so.
Okay, I would just like to say that I'm very proud to have Mr. Aaron Peck as our next mayor, and because of the unusual intricacies of the voting method, but I would certainly want him to be welcomed with a unanimous show of support for his appointment.
Very well said. All right. I don't have anything else. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn. Second.
We've got motions and seconds all over here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Look at that, Mr. Scragg.
Yeah, I know.
You owe me.